I want to talk about potential moving abroad and work opportunities. Now, this isn't for me. I love being British. I love living in England. If career opportunity sends me in different direction, then I'll consider it. But I love my country. I love it, like I say. But someone's come up on my For You page, and to be honest, I've seen the content for a good time, a while now. I think he's been going a few years, so he's definitely passionate. So it's an American that wants to come to the UK. I do worry about the fact that I don't think they've thought it through a lot. Like, for instance, there was back when I was in my 20s, I was thinking of relocating to Canada. I just worked for a large distribution center that they had, but turns out that they actually had a lot of centers around the world, including a lot of offices um, in Canada. So that's sometimes a way you can get into another country. Is sometimes you don't think that far ahead. You don't think maybe your employer it's because they're multinational. It's an international company. It can actually open doors for you. So all of a sudden, I just wrote to head office, just on a whim, really, and they literally sent me loads and loads of papers of head office or like locations in Canada to get in contact with. I didn't pursue it in the end, but it was something I was thinking about, and I even bought a book on Canada immigration and things to figure out how to go about it. And I think that at the very least, that's really where you need to be going. So I just want to show him a minute. Now, I'm not someone that likes to go in comment sections. I'll look a little bit. You just can't do it. There's the character limit. And sometimes I think you can type something and it get misunderstood. It's just an absolute headache. I think there's a lot of naivety in his approach. And in fact, I'll show him in a minute. Just so you can see his face there. But I'll explain a little bit of how I understand his journey, because I've seen his content for a while, and why I think it's a very incredibly naive. Because he spoke about arriving on a tourist visa in the past, and I've seen that where he said about a 6 month tourist visa, which you're allowed to do. Then he spoke about like cash in hand jobs and things like that. And I thought, Christ away, you can't be doing that. You've really got to take it serious. If you come on a tourist visa, you better be a tourist. And if you've got other intentions, you better make sure you've got the right visa. I'd say that absolutely, unequivocally, because the last thing you want is to get banned from a country and you just shatter your dream immediately just because you didn't do it the right way. Yes, one way may cause a rejection. It's the risk. It's the risk of anything. I've spoke a lot, but I hate the fact that there are borders, and I hate the fact that we are limited in life where we can't just follow our heart. He's very passionate about the UK, and you can tell it's really where he feels comfortable. It's a home to him, even though he's American. So your heart goes out. You just think, oh, why can't that just be that simple? It's sad, isn't it? It costs an absolute fortune. I've seen someone doing it the right way. Someone who's married a British person. I'm not saying that is the right way, but they've literally had to pay. I think he was explaining they paid about $4,000 for the NHS fee. Then they have to pay their visa fees. It's costing an awful lot of money for them to relocate, doing it the official way, filing all the right paperwork and doing it. But the thing is, that they're actually doing it the right way, though. I think so effectively they want to be, from my understanding, is this person wants to be a social media content creator for sports team, like a football, soccer team. And it's like, but they've set their ambitions Premier League Championship only. Well, there's only 20 teams in the Premier League, and I think there's 24 in the Championship. So that opens you up only to 44 teams. And some people are saying it's going to be really hard, and they might hire. They're more likely to hire local people. I wouldn't even argue that. I'd say if you look at any team, any sports team around the world, for the most part, most of them, they've already got a team around them. Are they even hiring? You could say, "Oh, I'm only going to go. I'm only interested in this team." Well, wouldn't everybody? But anyway, anyone that's into sports, like me growing up, I'd have freaking loved it. Now I've got my own projects and my own things to do. But no, there'd be a lot of people that would love to do that. So I think it's quite naive to think all of a sudden because you want it, you get it. It's not really, doesn't really work like that. But yeah, but little advice there I was going to come up with really was if I was looking to do social media content creation for a sports team, I think the best thing you can do is really start creating the content anyway, and then you've got a sample. your portfolio. I think portfolios are good. Create a portfolio of content that you can use as an example to say, look, this is how much I've been following the team. I'm aware of all this. All of a sudden, it's like proactive. That's what I think is really important. Is we're proactive in life. You can have ambition. I think it's a beautiful thing, but you got to be pragmatic with it. So I think just make yourself integral, and then you can do that. On the other side of that, why, the other side is, there's an awful lot of podcasts nowadays, video podcasts all over YouTube that become really popular with sports. So you could potentially go down the path of even investing in that. But I'm not sure that really requires someone to be in the country. You can do that externally. Um, but I don't know all the answers to this because it's quite crazy. But it's that naivety though that concerns me. They're saying about living in this part of the country, without any groundwork to actually, from my understanding, is to get any sort of permanent residency in the first place. The world isn't fair. It is incredibly unbalanced. I keep seeing people moan about immigration and illegal immigrants, but yeah, it happens to everybody, doesn't it? It's like the thing is, there's too much racism in this world, and it's almost like you can make an example for this person. Why? Because they're familiar. Maybe they have the same color, or they've just got. They're more relatable. That's the problem with people, though. Is I don't want to go too far into that, but that's where that discrimination part gets on my nerves a little bit. It's like, we're all people, but we should all be free to do what we want, in my opinion. So, like for me personally, I have obviously a British passport, and that means I don't have to file visas as such to get into specific countries. I have like freedom of travel. Some people, maybe African nations, South America, they have to go through a whole process just to be able to have a tourist visa in some prominent countries, especially into the UK and things. It's just ridiculous. It's so ridiculous, but the rest of us have privilege, and I talk about that a lot. Now, I'm quite fortunate because, for a little bit of figuring it out, really, I didn't think about it in the past. But since we had the Brexit situation in the UK and we've lost that right to free travel, free passage, and live and, have careers in Europe, so we're sort of like stuck in England. But again, I love England anyway. But I think it's always good to have options. So I, for instance, have my grandfather, so my mum's father, who I never knew. Unfortunately, he passed a long time ago. But through that connection, I can acquire Irish citizenship. So I can have a dual passport, Irish passport and a UK passport. And that would then allow me the freedom of Europe. So it's like it's silly that little loopholes allow us freedoms when other people maybe don't have that freedom. So I'm going to share a little bit here just to show. And I mean, like I say, it's really hard to find all the answers, but I think it's important that people do the research themselves. It's really important to dig in. Like I've done the research myself. Like for instance, if I was to relocate to America, what would I need? Like, because I see career potential. Maybe there's potential there later on. I mean, with the Trump's chaos at the minute, it's not really something I'm thinking about too much at the moment. But you just never know where career takes you. And likewise, I was talking to an American in the past, and I was sort of proactive, thinking what would happen if it was to escalate and they was to come here. What would we need? It's about due diligence before anything potentially happens, so you're not like running around worrying. So I understood the process, and it's a similar process in the UK as it is in America. So you can file a fiance visa, and then obviously you're seeking permission to enter the country, and with the understanding that you're likely to get married. And I think you have to get married within 6 months or 3 months. I can't remember exactly now, but a little research will tell you that. You're sort of like showing the intention to get married. And you can also get a marriage visa, of course, after. So you would do a change of status. So these things happen. They cost money, cost substantial amounts of money. Or you can, of course, get married in another country as long as it's recognized by those countries you're looking to enter, and it's an official marriage. Again, you have to make sure that there's documentation to prove you're not already married when you get married. Because some people do that. They hide the fact they're already married somewhere else. But there's fees to go with all of this. And like for me personally, it's just really important. I think that you're transparent and honest when you're applying for visas and when you're looking through the application process. And unfortunately, sometimes we're not even eligible. There could be loopholes and little things. Maybe you haven't earned enough income. In the UK, there's have to earn an annual amount of money to qualify, let alone the visa fees. So if your annual income for the period that they require isn't high enough, then you don't even qualify, even with the fees. So it's really unfair. It does favour the wealthy, unfortunately. But yeah, so I think based on the fact that I was looking based on a potential marriage, because that's the way I was thinking. You never know where a relationship heads. If it was to go to a marriage, what is the options? What is the process? And I've done all my due diligence on that. I've done all my due diligence on what I would need to get the citizenship for Ireland and then get the passport. So there's all this process, and to be honest, even it's even complicated for me because I was looking at the website, I was putting in my grandfather's name details, and I think after that they asked about his mum or something, and I thought, well, how the hell do I know the answers to this? So that's something where I'm going to have to sort of like figure out whether I'm going to need an intermediary for this. I'm not sure. It's it's a little complicated, and I don't want to sort of throw money away all the time with application fees, but it is something I want, just peace of mind. And I would like to travel into Ireland at some point anyway. It's good to just do. I mean, it looks actually beautiful. It looks similar to England, but it still looks incredibly beautiful. But the fields, the country, it's just I like the countryside anyway. I like nature. Don't want to digress too much. The only positive is some people live in privileged countries and they're lucky in the first place to an extent. But like I say, if you look at the processes I've done, I've done my due diligence on America, England. I've done my due diligence on getting to Ireland. And of course, then by extension, it doesn't really take a lot of effort. You just start looking up the embassies and, and you start figuring out what is the process for this, what's the process for that. It's just a little bit of research. But I think narrowing yourself to say I will only work with these companies or these sports teams it's limiting, isn't it? It's crazy. I think it's crazy because they already have they already have their teams creating their content. So my personal thing is if you're gonna get into the sports industry, but I would assume the best thing you can do is a podcast, because then potentially you can start. If your podcast gets big enough, you can start potentially interviewing people who are established. All of a sudden you start networking, and maybe that way you start to build a brand, and then you get some traction that way. But I think working directly for a sports team, I think it's going to be so hard. So anyway, let's go to have a look.
All right, guys. So this past weekend, I had my last preseason match for SAFC. We kick off this weekend on Saturday, March 8th at home against Monterey Bay in the USL Championship. It's going to be a great home opener. Besides that, this weekend I did a lot of investigation for myself for a job in football over in England. Now, this journey of me getting over to England and living there full time is not going to be easy by any sort of way. Like, it's going to take a lot because it is all going to be to myself. I don't have any help from anybody. I have no insight from anybody. I have no one on this social media platform that wants to help me out currently, which I'm hoping that this will happen. But, it's going to take hard work and dedication, and that's all I'm here for. Nothing is going to change my mind, and nothing is going to come in front of me that's going to stop me from getting over to England and working in football full time. Now, I got a very good tip from one of my good friends who's worked in the MLS for multiple years. He told me about a website that's basically a search engine with AI where you type in where you want to live or work and what kind of work you want to do, or your CV that you currently have or your resume. Put my resume in it, and it matched up with over 28 clubs over in England from Manchester, Midlands, and London, because I would like to live somewhere within that. So obviously the more north I want to live, I would like to live in London, just very expensive in that, and I don't want to have to deal with that. But a job in football is a job in football nonetheless. And also, I know I'm being picky. I don't want to work in non-league, and I don't want to work in League One. I want to work in the Championship or the Premier League, obviously. Now, I did not know that.
That's incredibly crazy. That's the equivalent, if we're going to put it in American terms, it's just saying I will only work in the NFL. I won't do college football. That's the only way I can equate it. If you're an American listening in, it's like that's the sort of thing you're saying. It's like, that's crazy because the Premier League, there's 20 clubs, but they're like worldwide and they're huge. They got big budgets. They will have proper branding. They won't need someone applying to them. They'll be doing their own hiring rather than being approached. I can't see. I think the Championship is very high quality still. A lot of the time, the Championship is just a lot of the teams are like teams that just fell out of the Premier League, and some of them struggle to come straight back up because that is how strong that league is. It's crazy. So I think setting your standards to that level is quite mad, in my opinion. I don't see it happening. I don't know their background, I don't know their history, but I just think, wow, because there's a lot of people. Everybody finishes high school and they go off from college and then they start applying for things. You don't think a lot of people who grew up from birth, we're all brought up with soccer, football. Most of us, like most kids growing up, they want to be football players, like soccer players. That's what we all wanted to be when we're little. You're playing, you're gonna go see, one day. And then some people, well, of course, some of us grow out of it, and others maybe don't. But I would say a lot of them at that age would be interested in working with their favourite club, especially local. So, like I say, to get a visa anyway, there's a whole process with that, and it costs a fortune. So, like, I'm not trying to rain on someone's parade because I think ambition's great, and I think having a dream is a beautiful thing. But you have to be realistic with the costs of it all as well. I think a flight is expensive between the UK and the US, and I just think the visa fees are outrageous. Like, I think it's mad you have to pay that NHS fee up front. And I think if you, depending on how long the visa is, I think you have to pay all of it at once. So let's say I think I can't remember the exact amount per year, but if you was to say, it's a 4-year visa, whatever it's for, it'd be quite a lot of money. There's other requirements, and I just think you got to do your due diligence before. I would look into all that before you even look into the other stuff, to be totally honest. Of course, you can have there's tax exemptions in certain things, so potentially you could work for the company abroad, work for the club abroad, and then maybe you work your way in that way. But I just don't see how they would hire someone from a foreign nation unless they're trying to branch out that way. It's I don't know. It's just see, like I say, my when I he's done a lot of videos on this, and like I say, I wouldn't want to rain on someone's parade or diminish a dream. I just every time I see the content, I always worry the naivety within it. It's if you look at it's crazy. It's like I've done my books, and it's personal growth, transformation. I've got a spiritual book as well, and you would argue like a place like California and America, there's a community for that. And it's almost a bit like me saying, I'm going to pack everything up. I'm going to get a flight. And I'm just going to travel out. I'm going to fly out to America and I'm going to make it happen. And perhaps, maybe you can if you get really lucky. But I think it comes with an incredible risk. Like, does it not make more sense to do it organically? So for me, my point of view is I'm not specifically aiming in that direction. I'm just creating my content. I'm just following my dreams in my own unique way. And if a door opens, it opens, And then you just take it as each step at a time rather than pressure is to make this happen here and now. I don't know, it's different because if your dream is to be in that country, it's like, oh, how can you make it so? And like everybody else, like other people comment and say, like sometimes the best way is to find a partner from that country. It's the craziest thing, but that is literally what it is. Or you're going to have to fulfill the visa requirements for you to be like a specialist in a certain industry. People think it's hard to get into America. I think, from my understanding, it's really hard to get into the UK as well. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's harder to get into the UK than it is America, because I've been on there and it's mental. That even if I was to be an American and we got married, it's not a given we can stay in the UK. That's how tough it is to pass the freaking tests and stuff to get the qualification thing to get in, based on the criteria. So someone just willy-nilly wanting to come in, I think, is going to, just because they want to work in sports, is like, I don't know. I don't know if it can happen, in all honesty. I actually, again, I don't want to crush a dream, but I personally I don't see how it can happen, because it's not a qualified profession. It's just not. And unless you, like, the best way you've got is to meet someone, I think. So anyway, I think to limit that dream to say I will only work for certain sports teams, I think is incredibly wild, because that's very unlikely to happen, I would argue. So your best chance would be the lower leagues. But even then, surely you would have to show an affinity to that club to show that you know them, but you can produce the content. Of course, it's very niche. It's very specific to that individual and their journey and what they're aspiring to be. But like I say, if I was to do a comment, it wouldn't even do it justice, you know. But you can't go into anything just. I don't think you can go into anything naive. It's like if you went to another country and there's different laws and rules. You can't just play ignorance and just say, "Oh, I didn't know." It's like, mate, you're going to do your research. You can't go to other countries and offend that nation and then break laws and then to act like you're not you can't be held accountable because you didn't know. That's not how the world works. You have to know. So if you do want, so like for instance, I talk about America, for instance, I thought you could only get a tourist visa and you couldn't have interviews. I didn't think you could do meetings. I didn't know how it worked. Now I know because there's an immigration guru guy, I don't know, on TikTok, and I've seen it, and I've done my own research after hearing about it. I think it's a B1, B10, B visa, or something like this. It wouldn't take me long to figure it out. So effectively, you can come on a tourist visa, but you can also come on a business visa. But it's really important that you stick to what everyone you've said. But you can do an adjustment visa when you. So once you're in America, for instance, if you was to travel into America, if a situation arose that changes circumstance, you can file for an adjustment to that visa. Of course, there'd be fees involved. So, for instance, let's say you went out there and then you actually met someone, hit it off. You're on a 6-month tourist visa, whatever you're doing, and now all of a sudden you want to you're going to get engaged. Like, it's crazy. Things are happening quickly. Well, it's like, don't panic. You know, you can file for adjustment. It's not like you went there with the understanding that was going to happen. It just happened. Things happen. So now all of a sudden you start following the process, and it may very well be that part of that process, because your temporary visa, that tourist visa, is going to expire. The one thing you cannot let happen with a visa, and I know this, and I wouldn't even risk it at all, is you do not want your tourist visa, any visa you have, to expire while you're in that country, because now you're considered an illegal alien. You're now considered illegal. You should not be in the country at all, and you will get banned from re-entering the country. I think it's a 10-year ban or something crazy. I wouldn't even risk getting near that date. So yeah, you would best thing you can do is leave, file it, I think, and leave, and then hope, and then wait to hear back and things like that. And yeah, it's a longer process, and maybe it's going to cost more money, but don't play with visas. If you went with a business visa, of course, it's the understanding you're not earning an income, so you're not getting paid for these meetings and for the things. But maybe you're trying to deal with a contract, so you're trying to sign an agreement for this, or you're trying to set up something. And again, let's say he was out there on that, and it turned out that company wanted to hire you and they want you to stay. Well, they may be able to sponsor you. So now you haven't gone there with the intention you're going to start working. You've gone there to just have a meeting to see what the options are and make a decision. And it may be the decision is they want to hire you. And it's like, okay, so how do we go about this? Because I'm not a resident and my visa doesn't allow or permit me to work activities. So I would take that incredibly serious. Other people maybe don't care, but you're the one that has to face the repercussions. But actually, Americans, companies, even like McDonald's, can sponsor you. So I don't know how easy it is in the UK, but in America it's actually quite easy because certain states, they actually want people. And I remember seeing something where if like McDonald's were going to sponsor people, if you come out, but of course, the thing about the sponsor thing is you have to work for them. I don't know what happens if you stop working for the company. You know, do you have to get deported? So there are risks, and you've got to take that again. You're destabilizing your whole life. But if you're following a dream, sometimes you've got to throw everything at it, and I get that. But I do think you can't be naive. As you've seen with me, I'm aware of processes because I've done my research and my due diligence. I'm aware of what potentially could happen, and I'm sort of prepared in advance, roughly, for it. So, and it's like I'm aware there's an adjustment process if circumstances change, but it's really important that you adhere to whatever the visa is that you requirements that you enter a country. And I really wouldn't play with that. Because the last thing you want is to be banned or permanently banned from a country because you didn't come with true intentions. That would be my main advice. Do not risk shit because you will regret it. You will literally find yourself unable to enter the country. The other thing, of course, is criminal record. Do what you can to not have a criminal record because, from my understanding, it can make it even hard just to have a holiday. You see it on the TV. We've got that in the UK. I can't remember what it's called now, but it deals with Australia. And there's so many people that get refused entry into Australia just because they have a criminal record. But then the same applies to other countries. The UK is very, very tight on that as well. If you've got a criminal record, I don't know to the level, but people don't think like that. They get in themselves all sorts of mischiefs, and then all of a sudden they find their freedom of movement around the world is restricted because specific countries do not allow entry. So yeah, it's just if you've got a dream, I say follow it, but be pragmatic with it and be realistic. And I just think we all get impatient. Of course, you'd love to have everything now, but sometimes it's about building towards that dream. I've been working on my books for 5-6 years now. I've done a book each year. Well, I guess 6 years then, because there's 6 books, and there's another one coming out this year. So maybe I'm on my 7th year. Who knows? And wherever life takes me, it takes me. But I've just been working at it and working at it and working at it. I just improve my craft. I get better at what I do. Like wherever it leads, it leads. But I don't have that pressure of I must live here or I must live there. I'm fortunate I'm where I'd like to be. But I'm open to ideas and opportunities in the future. So who knows where life takes you? But I think maybe that impatience, because I can understand that. Imagine feeling trapped and you're not where you want to be. It's a horrible feeling, I guess. But I think that impulsiveness could be the downfall. I would just start with a YouTube channel, making content on sports teams and things. So you've got a portfolio, focus work, because it's about fine tuning the craft anyway. Like, would you be like, I don't know the content, but would you be good? Like, if you're creating content like that, are you even good enough yet? Because it takes time to gain experience, and then you get better at it. So maybe your production qualities will improve later on, and it might take you a year or two to fine tune a craft. Find your niche. But if you're impatient, it might turn out that you finally get an opportunity, but can you even present anything? Like, what is the role you're looking for, and how you're going to go about doing it? It's easy to say you can do something; it's another thing doing it. But anyway, I just wanted to show that. Hopefully, it helps other people. Really, if they're thinking of relocating to other countries and they have aspirations to move abroad, it's really not as simple as you think. It's potentially it's possible, but you'll find the majority of people that do have money behind them before they go. So they've got something to settle themselves in first anyway, and they can afford all the visa requirements or the admin fees and everything else that comes along with it. And sometimes they're just qualified in different areas. It might be somewhere where, like for instance, when I was looking at Canada a long time ago, there were certain criteria to qualify. If you had a degree, that helped you. If you worked in a certain industry that the country is looking for, that helped. And the same applies, I think, for a lot of other countries too, if you find your niche. But some of them are, though. Some of them do really want content creators. But I'd argue to be a content creator, you're going to have a large following. And I think 15 to 20,000 followers, I wouldn't say is a prominent social media content creator. So I'm not sure that's the criteria they mean. But you never know what you fall into and what opportunities can come of it. But I don't think, like I said, I don't think British visas are easy to come by.